ניר,
שומע, כן.
rinpoche כאן, da תנסם, נשים אותו קוסט,
איך הוא נקרא? סליחה?
da תנסם. Good morning, rinpoche.
אוקיי, הוא מוגדר.
אני אעבור לאנגלית בשביל ההקדמה. בוקר טוב לכולם. So hi, welcome to this Dharma meeting of Dharma Friends of Israel. My name is Tomer, I will be the host, and soon we'll start a meeting with Chanchab Serkong Rinpoche, our teacher, who will teach us on the topic of the Heart Sutra. Before we start, I want to remind you this meeting is being recorded to YouTube. You can get to our YouTube channel by clicking on the YouTube icon in the Dharma Friends website. You can see there are many past recordings, many teachings of our teacher, Chanchab Serkong Rinpoche, and many teaching and courses on the topic of the Heart Sutra. Another thing, please, if possible, please feel free to turn on your camera. It will help create a much nicer atmosphere, sort of a classroom atmosphere, or gompa in this case. It will also help the teacher see us all. If you're interested, at the bottom of the course page on the Dharma Friends website, you can find materials for this course, mainly the Heart Sutra itself, but we will also share it here. Now, I want to say a few words about our dear teacher. Chanchab Serkong Rinpoche was born in Spiti Valley in India in 1984. When he was about 3 years old, he was recognized by His Holiness the Dalai Lama as the incarnation of Kyabje Chanchab Serkong Tugse Rinpoche, who was one of the 7 master debate partners to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Rinpoche studied Buddhism in Ganden Jansa Monastery in South India and completed his education at the Institute of Dialectics in Dharamsala. On the advice of His Holiness, he has completed 3 years of intensive study of English in Canada and is continuing his higher Buddhist training. Rinpoche is teaching mainly in India, combining his experience of the study and practice of Buddhism with his acquaintance and knowledge of the Western world. He's a fascinating teacher, full of wisdom, grace, and humor, as you will shortly see, or probably already know. One last word before I hand over the mantle to Serkong Rinpoche. As you may know, all our activities are done only by volunteers and financed only by Dana. So if you wish to practice generosity and donate to the teacher and the continuation of our activities, you may do so there's an option in our webpage, but we also link the details here in the chat. So that's all from me. We'll start now. I want to wish us all an interesting, pleasant, and beneficial meeting. So, Serkong Rinpoche, thank you very much for this teaching, and the floor is yours.
Okay, I see many familiar faces, friends, and families, and all the lovely faces I can see in the one screen. That's beautiful. So the first few sentences I would say in English. So how does that work? Yakila, is it simultaneously or?
Alternating.
Okay, I got it then.
아니 림보체 간소 바가치라 상여 추소마데 두나 야마나 샤라님 두나 히브루케 돌라 두나
Hebrew diyor ya şuraya. Neyse. So so before we start, I think I would like to thank the Dharma Friends of Israel for organizing this beautiful event. And I call this event very powerful and inspiring because the whole world is going in a very difficult situation. and still you people have a strength, people have a courage, and you have a space with you to practice Dharma, and that's incredible. That's incredible. That's a good inspiration to all of us.
אז צהריים טובים, בוקר טוב לכולם. קודם כל, סרקון rinpoche רוצה להודות לכולם שנפגשים פה היום. במיוחד מאחר ואנחנו הולכים ללמוד ביחד את סוטרת מהות החוכמה. אנחנו נפגשים פה למפגש הזה שיש בו הרבה עוצמה וגם הרבה מאוד השראה. במיוחד מאחר ואנחנו עוברים בתקופה הנוכחית, בשנים האחרונות, תקופה מאוד קשה ומאתגרת, ואנחנו
Mhm. And then also for my personal Dhamma friends of Israel, when they request a teaching from me, I many times I get a special opportunity to study for my own good. So how much benefit is there to others? I have Mm, I have a good wish. I'm trying to be optimistic, but the most benefit who is getting is I'm 100% sure that I'm getting the benefit from here. So I secondly I wanted to thank you for that opportunity.
ומעבר לזה גם מאחר שידידי הדרמה בישראל ביקשו את רימפוצ'ה ללמד אותנו כאן בסוף השבוע הזה, וגם ביקשו ממנו בעבר ללמד אותנו כמה וכמה פעמים, אז בהזדמנויות שרימפוצ'ה לימד אותנו כידידי הדרמה בישראל, הוא אומר שמבחינה אישית הוא קיבל הזדמנות מצוינת עבורו ללמוד. אז כמה תועלת יש בשיעורים שלו עבורנו, עבור אחרים? רימפוצ'ה אומר שהוא אופטימי, הוא מקווה שיש תועלת בשיעורים שלו עבור אחרים, אבל כלפי עצמו הוא אומר 100% ביטחון, שהוא מוצא תועלת גדולה בשיעורים האלה. אז תודה רבה על ההזדמנות שאנחנו נותנים לו ללמד אותנו.
So now today's topic is Heart Sutra, and it is a very hard topic. So even the teacher who is today who is going to speak have a kind of a not much knowledge on that, but somehow for a long time studying with my teachers and including His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I get this opportunity time to time to discuss with many great lamas and rinpoches and gishis and well educated. So somehow I have got influence. So I call myself maybe a little bit better than a parrot who repeat but have a little understanding. So with the good motivation, I hope somehow you will get benefit out from there.
מאחר צ'נשה סרקון rinpoche ילמד אותנו היום את סוטרת מהות החוכמה, זה הנושא שביקשנו מהמורה ללמד אותנו. זאת אומרת שהוא בעצמו אין לו ידע עצום או נרחב בנושא, אבל איכשהו לאורך זמן רב הוא למד עם מוריו, עם המורה שלו, למד מכבוד הדלאי למה, והיו לו הזדמנויות רבות לא רק ללמוד את הנושא הזה, אבל גם לערוך שיחות עם מורים אחרים, עם חכמים אחרים, scholars, אז רימפוצ'ה אומר שמאחר שהייתה לו הזדמנות, היו לו הרבה הזדמנויות גם לקרוא את הטקסט, גם ללמוד אותו, גם לדסקס אותו עם אחרים, אז הוא טיפח איזושהי הבנה מסוימת של הטקסט, וזה יעזור לו לא רק לומר את המילים כמו איזה תוכי, אלא גם להסביר את התוכן. אז הוא בא לפה למפגש שלנו היום עם מוטיבציה חיובית, מוטיבציה טובה לעשות זאת.
So now I think we better start with the text. Otherwise, if I speak, then I go endlessly so long. So no point. So before starting this, we do Sangye Chozuma together, and then maybe short mandala. And then we start, I guess. So Heart Sutra, we don't need to recite, I guess, because it takes a long time, but we are going to study that together. So.
And so we're going to do the recitation in Hebrew, by the way, for the people who joined us from all around the world. So if you have the recitation of refuge and bodhicitta in your own languages, you're welcome to do them in your own languages. We're going to do it in Hebrew, and I shall share the screen with you. בבודה, בדרמה, בקהילה העילאית, אבקש מקלט עד להערה, באמצעות המצבורים של נדיבות וכולי, לא אשיג בודהיות כדי להועיל ליצורים הנודדים. בבודה, בדרמה, בקהילה העילאית, אבקש
I go
מקלט
for
עד
refuge until
להערה,
I'm enlightened to the
באמצעות
Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Arya
המצבורים
Sangha
של
from the
נדיבות
accumulations I collect
לא
through
אשיג
practicing
בודהיות
giving
כדי
other
להועיל
affections,
ליצורים
may I
הנודדים.
attain the state of Buddha not to benefit all
בבודה,
sentient
בדרמה,
beings.
בקהילה העילאית, אבקש מקלט עד להערה, באמצעות המצבורים של נדיבות וכולי, לא אשיג בודהיות כדי להועיל ליצורים הנודדים. And we shall also recite the short mandala prayer as a token for requesting the teachings. And so I'll do one recitation in Hebrew, and then we can all recite it in Tibetan. אדמה זו משוחה בקטורת, עטורת פרחים, עדויה בהר מרור, בארבע יבשות, בשמש ובירח, עולה בדמיוני כשדה בודה, ואותה אגיש לכם כמנחה, לו יהיינו כל הנדדים משדה טהור זה. סשי פוקי Junshi meto tamri rabling shi ni dege ange shindu mikte owai Roku nam da shin la chupa shoi dan guru ratna mandala kamniya dayami.
유선 도주가 너무 제저스서 간제들 괜찮아 보면 된된 저도 저한테 조선된 저저 무슨로 나도 열매 계산 들어본다 저 저거 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 신지 신이 전화 차서 뭐 반대 저거 말은 뭐지 안다게 닝걸 배면된 줄라 가진 신병원에 이제 손도 고소 통기 오도 저도 والله شو 옳다. 다 되네. 얘는 다 싫어하는 거 뭐죠? 그러나 아니 삼동번 얘기다. 진짜 저저 얘기 슝디. 아니 다 삼동번 얘기. 아니 산지 좀 된디. 대지리야. 개신부지 지나요래. 신 라베이나. 아니 저장을 반대 나와 잡기 오만 주베기 나로래야. 심기 두배 커도라. 아니 진소 퍼진 쪽이 냠는데 쉬우지 자침부리스 아니 돌던나다 지기 년중 창섬 양답에 따와슬람네리 다 간지 진베네 다 대다 탐지 아니 라는저 어 동이 땡도 끼에 매밤 코알레 타르바 체디 다 가릭 체도 그랬을라나 진수 퍼진 두비냐면 상면나로네 다 초도 주방 소고도디 코알레 타르치기 유쪽어디 가르래라면 다음에 시럽들었어 dim맵이나 아니 알아는 적이 냐면 컨디지 쉐베이나야 아니 지 가서 그래 단다 배제기 슝나로야 타년도데 코알레 죄제기 람다 아니 민지기 람 쓰지 니송베 나로네 죄제기 람라라가 지어마 창세 민지기 람레 슈자 데베이나 가릴 민기리스나 코알레 민기리마도 코알레 죄벌시벌 미약해요 말이스 대인도 선배 아니 좀 전되기 최 컨디지 송베이나야 당매 마템베 튠 남야메스 무슈 주스네 담에 땡고요레스 가르진스나 자와 닝지 집에 심비치를 쓰죠 도시지 용어도가
הנושא שלכבודו אנחנו נפגשים היום הוא סוטרת מהות החוכמה.
So before we go into the teaching on the Heart Sutra, should first explain that this text is explaining emptiness and the deep meaning of emptiness. So, and we should look at how the Buddha took this teaching on emptiness to be so precious, why emptiness is so precious and important. Well, we can see that Chandrakirti in his teaching on the entering the stages of the path, he gave the presentation of the 6 perfections over the chapter and explained that these practices of the 6 perfections are very precious and important, and particularly emphasizing renunciation and bodhicitta and the correct view to be very important. And the emphasis is on needing to get a stable realization of emptiness to arise. The need to make emptiness, the wisdom realizing emptiness to stably arise in order to become free from cyclic existence. Because the way to become free from cyclic existence is through the wisdom that realizes selflessness. And so whatever, all the other perfections, they all need to be qualified by the wisdom realizing selflessness, so the teaching on emptiness, because among the paths to achieve liberation from cyclic existence, there's the liberating path and the fruitional path. And if we only generate the fruitional path in our minds, then we will only bring about, if we only generate the fruitional path in our mind, it's just going to be another fruitioning of cyclic existence. Is only going to generate another samsara. So without the liberating path, all the other trainings is just going to bring about a future samsara. So the Buddha at all times always gave instructions on selflessness, and Buddha gave all these instructions on selflessness motivated by compassion.
הבשלה או הבשלות בתוך המעגל הסמסרי, ולכן הבודה בחמלתו הגדולה, בכל שיעור שהוא נתן, הוא אף פעם לא נמנע מללמד את השקפת הריקות או השקפת היעדר העצמיות. לעשות.
어디 다디 인도점에 제상가 산지 좀 된 얘기 최는 샤준도 카리 송구 여베나 다 만체지 가서 그래 아니 내가 치중디 가질 수 있는 거요. 시도 좀 남샤준도 송주 남백갑라 다 행동지고 월 쇼제베 민단 단다 주제 송주는 게 요소래. 다 이나야 셰르님부 남백갑라야 산지 좀 된 데라니기 아니 슈디겸브레스 산지 좀 된 데기 슈디겸 어디 아주 들은 거상 슈디나 시 쓰고도 있어 말해. 다디 슈디디 돌레베지 견체 돌레베디 피게간을 샤나체 달린디 아니 저저 짜침부 시비지 유전배 아니 디 말랑이 된디 디간로 추디디 되고 있어 어디 내가 신부지 지나 있으래 제상가 다단도 추티 세디 싫어님부 송배 갑라야 신이지 충분히 인사로 봐 어디 유전배 된지 추 추대를 가지고 단단 남샤 견도다 제 마시고는 야 아니 슈리를 차제 거에게 루스디에 뒤뒤 차 있으래 어디 이제 잠배 다 된저그 저자 자친구들이 아니 저장가다 단다 그런 주다 싫어진 분 나로야 아니 컨디스다 조링난 것도 슬라베이나 다 되는 거兄弟응시되고 오늘 만직 쓰는 거
כשהבודה הבגוון לימד את תלמידיו את הנקודות החשובות שנמצאות בתוך שיעורי
So
הבודה.
therefore, Lord Buddha gave all the Dhamma teachings, gave different strength of importance to the different Dhamma teachings that he gave. And one way to look at this is that many of the teachings that the Buddha gave, he gave them from like under a tree, he said. And then actually the teaching on emptiness, the Buddha gave from a Dhamma throne. So actually, this is like the first time that the Dhamma throne came into being or came about. So this shows the great emphasis that Lord Buddha put on teaching emptiness. And so we can see that among all the teachings of the Buddha, the one that he gave most importance to was this teaching on emptiness, for he gave these teachings from a Dhamma throne. And so then how do we engage in this discussion on emptiness? We can engage in this discussion on emptiness from the teaching of the Heart Sutra.
סוטרת מהות החוכמה, אפשר להבין גם את חשיבות הנושא שסוטרת מהות החוכמה עוסקת בו. ולכן רימפוצ'ה אומר שאפשר אולי להסיק מכך כשמורה מלמד, שמתחילים שיעורים, אנחנו קדים בפני הכס, וזה אפשר לומר, זה מדגיש את אותם קווים שנמצאים בסיפור המסגרת של האופן שבו הבודה לימד את סוטרת מהות החוכמה.
알았어. 다 당고兄弟 단다디게 갸르게도 바까워디 짠게 빠라메다 다야 아스 다 되네 디 갸르게디체 또 추주로 온도 잠베 아니 바까와디 시도 바까완 세디 당아저 좀된 데세야다 좀된 데마세디 다디 좀된 데말 코고요다 제정가다 좀된 데마세도 잠베 바까완 세디 남샤 준도 아니 아주 좀 세도 가리 좀 버렸어도 뒤시 좀 버렸어 묘몽베도 시다게도 아니 가래 아니 라이브 뒤제 아니 지카소야 치다 뒤소에 치다
是的，记得松松。
치다 뒤로봐 풍비도 혹한다 풍비도 안 하이비도 묘몽비도 치다 뒤선 뒤시리 차소아 제장가 아란주 년도야 바가왕 세도 남샤준도 산제 좀 된데야 아주기 바가왕 시주 쉬고요 좀 된데 시도 아주 칸에 바가왕 세디 지게 명성도비지 아주만 손에 여기 슬라브나 신체제 그거 개블로로 된다디 시라상로 마당이 식등고르마도 너네 지난 바가왕 슬라브디나 롤로 된다디 뒤시 좀바 인상 저랑 아니 얘기 차지기요지 뒤시 좀에도 소소는 야와 고르요레스 빼나 디나로 풍비도 있어야지 다 풍비도 있어요 상도당도 잠배 란저기 란저 남자 견도 코아스 잠배 시부지게 아니 간인지 중도 소소기 더바단 tum바지 뭐 중도 잠배 아니 칠로네 지기 튕긴지 뭐 리브 갑려야 인신에 어떤 코아랑 코웨 추니를 다 마디브레 세지 마도 마란주기 풍병원에 사진이 원래be 풍병이 도단 디토네 안가조 코아스 지 선물주는 땅게 매위인데 잠배 다 마란조 당보대 풍비도 시도 잠배 아니 치 튕긴 dim을 이렇게 매버지 이년래야 난 코랑 주기 생전 아란저기 철로 차단데 배나 풍봉하게 랑신디 코랑 아니 레다 녀몽베랑 진짜도 통도 잠배 다 레다 녀몽진기 레다 녀몽진을 때네 중셰베 아니 풍부텔라 야가치다 영야 가반의 요 그도이네 좀 쉬지 용고고 요래서지 acceptance 디직 당보디 레 투베이나 신의 딘데 풍부디 간테스 좀 도래 세디 트와직래 딜레온에서 풍부를 두 세티 어디 삼로질리 또한
וכשאנחנו מתחילים בקריאת הסוטרה, סוטרת מהות החוכמה, היא מתחילה קודם כל בשם הסוטרה בשפה ההודית, בגבתי פרג'נה פרמיטה הרידיה. וקודם כל אנחנו מתחילים בשם, בגבתי. בדרך כלל אנחנו קוראים לבודה הבודה, הבגוון.
Okay, so when we look at the text, the Sherem Ningbo, the Heart Sutra, it begins with the saying in Yagaketu Bhagavati Prashaparamita Hridaya. So in Indian, it says the Bhagavati or Bhagavan. The Bhagavan in Tibetan refers to Chomdende, the foe destroyer. Sorry, the Chomdende or Chomdendema. So in Tibetan, the word Bhagavan in Tibetan refers to Chomdenma. So Chom is referring to what is destroyer or destroyed, and what is destroyed is the four maras. And the four maras are the four maras of the Mara of the aggregates, the Mara of the afflictions, the Mara of the deity sun, and the Mara of death. So the Mara of the deity sun, like Yakiste, can be demon, known as the demon. So the four Maras or four demons, sorry, the demon of the aggregates, demon of the afflictions, demon of the deity sun, and the demon of death. And so in the presentation of the Bhagavan, then we give the Buddha the name Bhagavan, or the Buddha is the Bhagavan. But we think of Bhagavan as just a name, like Yaki, calling Yaki his name Yaki. But actually, we don't think about the meaning behind that name. And so there is a deep meaning behind the name Bhagavan, and the Buddha is the Bhagavan. So because the Buddha has destroyed the four Maras, or the four demons, therefore, to you, Lord Buddha, I prostrate. We think like that. And so if we look at the first Mara, the Mara of the afflictions, it is due to the Mara or the demon of the afflictions that the Mara of the aggregates, then we are in cyclic existence with these aggregates, this demon of the aggregates. So usually when we meet with the outer conditions, which are problematic for us, they're uncomfortable or they don't go our way, then we think, oh, that's just the nature of samsara, and then we see the samsara as a problem. But actually, it's because we have the Mara or the demon of the aggregates that we are cycling cyclic existence or samsara and experiencing suffering. So from the inner perspective, rather than looking at the outer condition, from within us, our inner state is that we have these contaminated aggregates, and these aggregates are contaminated by karma and afflictions. And so the more that we recognize this and see that it's because we have these contaminated aggregates that are contaminated by karma and afflictions, if we can accept this, then we would start to think, how can we overcome cyclic existence? So if we're able to see the aggregates as a demon or a Mara, then there's a way to think about it, right?
אנחנו יכולים לקבל על עצמנו שהמצב הסמסרי הוא לא אידיאלי בכלל, אלא זה הטבע הסמסרי, הטבע של קשיים, אתגרים וכולי.
다디 인도 잠베냐라 풍부두 세데 삼로 땅바나 신침베 동이 된바 원신 셔바나 신 동이디 컨트롤지레 수도 풍부두두 여장베스 다디 풍부딘데 용야디 아니 주메월 밑엔 중앙 말에 유 여벌 되는 중바 인도 좀비 유 가르레 세데 레다 용몽베 되는 중바 인도 좀비 셔장가 아니 신의 용몽베두 세디 제단 용몽베 두디 마점발라 풍부두두 좀 두고 메두 좀비 아니 풍부두 좀에디 가르기 제고 요래 세도 좀비 아니 레다 용몽베 두디 마점 봐도 용고메자 신의 될야 아니 용몽베 두스 다 레다 녀모니 세베 탑델란 가르라그리스 라베나 아니 치다게 두스 나란즈 따지기 깨가 나치 세디 나로네 깨와디 아주 녀르 체 나는지기 요만 따 쳐바지글라 디깨와디 녀르세 되는 가와디 녀르세 나와디 녀르세 이나에 치와디타 녀르세데 이나에 딜라타 참은 고구르구요 여바 매네 고구르구에 치와디 차디요 딜 카데자 투에 개요 말바다 다 딜이야 용야디 아니 가르쳐 그래 딜리 톱톱하디 용고아래 가르잖으나 아주 치와디 레단 요몽비 샤만인자 치고요레스 다 레단 요몽비 샤만들 타르바이나 아니 신이 치와들레 타르바레스 레 오늘 선배다 타르바되는 것도 봐 개치쇼디
אז כשאנחנו עוסקים במראה של המצרפים, מה שאנחנו בעצם מסיקים או מבינים מתוך ההבנה של המראה של המצרפים זה את האמת הראשונה מתוך 4 המידות. האמת הראשונה היא סבל.
The aggregates are actually our current aggregates are actually the demon of aggregates or the Mara of the aggregates. And then we think about those and their state, then we come to see that they are true suffering. And we recognize that this true suffering comes because we're under the control of karma and affliction. So the true suffering of these contaminated aggregates arises from karma and afflictions. And so when we look at the presentation of the 4 maras or 4 demons, then there's the mara of the karma and affliction. So the demon of afflictions, this name given to it, the demon of afflictions. Among those 4, the second one, the demon of afflictions. And then when we look for a way to overcome the karma and afflictions, or the way to overcome this demon of the afflictions, then we come to looking at this, the demon of death. So actually we recognize birth to be suffering. We recognize aging to be suffering and problematic, and sickness. We recognize all these to be suffering. But then the death is like, sometimes we think it's like the end of that. And then maybe we wait for that. But actually, because under the power of, it's when we wonder like this death, where it comes from, is actually under the power, because we're under the power of karma and afflictions, then we have to die. And so if we overcome karma and afflictions, then at the end of overcoming karma and afflictions, at the end we achieve freedom or liberation.
חווים בסמסרה. אז כמובן שלא רק לידה היא בעיה עבורנו, אלא גם זקנה היא בעיה, וחולי היא בעיה, או מצוקה, וכמובן מוות. ואין לנו אפשרות להימנע ממוות. זה משהו שמתישהו יגיע בוודאות. אין לנו אפשרות בכלל להימנע ממוות. אז כדי להצליח לשבור את הכבלים האלה של הכבלים של הסבל שאותו אנחנו רואים בסמסרה, מה שאנחנו צריכים לשבור הוא את הכבלים של קרמה ותודעות אוכלות.
올라서 다 디뉴 담배 제장가 다 rimba디 총 rimba디 오잖아. 냐라 풍부 두 신야데 좀야디 컨디슬레송 슬레도 담배 아니 신의 rim바디 도체 명몽비 두 좀바레 인자 풍부 두좀 더브레스 명몽비 두디 아니 좀바티기 아니 캡상 가르라스도 다 치월래 레다 녀모 온게 치월래 타르바레 시도 잠비 치워 코라 메버서 좀 심마세 타르바데 토바레스타 리온도 잠비 다 난게 듀 용수 좀 정말 좀 새벽에 미들이야 아니 치기 듀지 다 치기 다디 캬나 디디 치기 다데게 내가 가수 제베 있나야 나랑라 레다 녀모 밤 아니 텔야 다스도 다그리 치긴게 다도 잠비 등징기도 제제 배 지금 아주 마소네 배 디르봤다 아테기 좀 봤어 고베 축도도서 라와도 서반 진이 semba 부수도 제데 남아야 요 말이스 대인도 잠베 타이 뷰 기두기 never 요 말이스 다 이제뭐 시디 더 코아 예베 띵네 아니 바가원 슬랍디 식디 never 침부 시버지다 자 침부 시버지 차버다 대인도 잠베 신에 될야 아 단다 디 시라니 뭔고 뭐죠 바가와디 아니 좀 된다마 세티 신의 샘 소리지 나로라 냐데 식디지 분들 베이나야 소소로 개방 시부지라 해야 되던가
אז בעצם על מה דיברנו עד כה? מה היה לנו עד כה?
And so because of this,
כדי
then when we have this
להרוס את
sequence,
המרה של
the
המצרפים,
sequence of
אנחנו צריכים
the
להרוס את המרה
way
של
that the
התודעות
Buddha
האורחות.
overcame the
אם
four demons, the four maras,
נהרוס את
then
המרה של
the
התודעות
first
האורחות,
Lord
אנחנו
Buddha
גם
destroyed the demon of
נוכל
afflictions.
להרוס את
And
המוות,
because Lord
להפסיק
Buddha
את
destroyed the demon of
הלידה.
afflictions,
וכמובן
then it
שאם
destroyed the demon
נהרוס
of
את
the
המרה
aggregates.
של התודעות האורחות, נכחיד אותה,
It destroyed the demon of
אז
the
אנחנו
aggregates
גם
by overcoming the
מבקשים
demon of the
את
afflictions.
החירות מסמסה.
And by overcoming the
נותר
demon
לנו
of
כמובן גם
affliction,
את המרה
it's because of
האחרונה,
overcoming or
וכן
destroying
אפשר
the
לחשוב על
afflictions, then
מה קורה כשאנחנו
Buddha
פוגשים איזשהו
destroyed
אויב חיצוני,
taking death
כשאנחנו
under the
פוגשים
power of
איזשהו
common
אויב
afflictions,
חיצוני ואנחנו
or
חווים
death,
פגיעה או איזשהו
the
נזק
death
או תחושות
overpowered by, or
מסוימות
the death that arose from
של
common
כאב ומצוקה
afflictions.
או לא.
So therefore, the Buddha
כאן
also
אנחנו לא
destroyed the demon of death.
עוסקים בעיקר באויב חיצוני, אלא אנחנו
And
עוסקים
the
בעיקר באויב
demon
הפנימי
of the
שהוא
afflictions was overcome through
האחיזה
the wisdom
בעצמי,
realizing
הטיפול בעצמי,
selflessness, because
שהופך
the
את
demon of the
העצמי או את
afflictions all came
העצמיות
about
למשהו שהוא
through the
מוצק
grasping at the self, this
ומוחשי.
sense of a real
אז בעצם
independent self.
אם נצליח להרוג
Because Buddha has,
להרוס את האויב
yeah,
הפנימי הזה,
it's through this grasping at a
אחיזה
self,
באיזושהי עצמיות שהיא
because Lord Buddha
מוצקה
has destroyed the
ומוחשית,
grasping at a self
אז לא נחווה
and
אף
destroyed the
פגיעה,
grasping at a self
אף
and
נזק.
gotten rid of the,
אפילו אם מישהו יקום
gotten rid of the or
עלינו,
abandoned the grasping at
לפגוע
self,
בנו.
then the
נכון,
Buddha is not
כשאנחנו
harmed
חושבים על
by the
המילה הזאת,
demon of the
בגבא,
deity of the son of
שבתחילה
the deity or the son
סוטרת
of the
מהות
gods.
החוכמה, שהרי
So we
כמו
can see in
שאומרים
this
בשפה
way,
ההודית,
Buddha,
שהסוטרה זה
Lord Buddha
בגבא,
has
מתחילה
overcome
בפרמיתה,
all of the
פרידה,
four
והמילה הראשונה
demons
זה
or the four
בגבא.
maras.
אז
And
הדבר
so then this
הראשון שאנחנו יכולים לחשוב עליו הוא
Bhagavan,
יש
this
פה כל כך הרבה
destroyer
תועלת
of
שהוא
the
שהוא
four maras, we can
בגבתי,
see this has
מתייחס,
deep meaning. The Buddha is
זה
kind of
גרסה
incredible for having
ראשית
overcome these
של
four and to
בגבא,
actually become the Bhagavan. So
הרס
that's
של
why at the start
ארבעה
of
סוגי
the Heart
המרה.
Sutra, there's this in the Indian language, it says the Bhagavati
다
Prajaparamita.
프란자스다 프란자스라네 다 딜이야 시랍치 다 파라 미타 세바티 파로이도 침바 아니 시다야 세야티기 닝보 다 너르드나 아니 좀 된데마 시랍지 파로이도 침비 닝보 다 파로이도 침바 그 나로는다 닝부디 디리스 닝부디
אז בשפה ההודית שם הסוטרה הוא בגבתי, פראצ'ניה פרמיתה, פראצ'ניה זה חוכמה, פרמיתה זה שלמות, ושרידיה זה מהות. שדרך אגב, לפעמים קוראים לסוטרה הזאת באנגלית The Heart Sutra, ותרגום נפוץ של השם הזה לעברית זה סוטרת הלב, אבל בעצם המילה רידיה משמעותה היא המהות של החוכמה. בשפה הטיבטית, הסוטרה הזאת
So
נקראת
the text goes on to say Prajaparamita Hridaya. The Prajna is the wisdom and the Paramita the perfection and the Hridaya. I missed that bit. And the Ningbo is the essence of the heart of the perfection of
좀된디 계획업 자기 풍부율이라 결론이 견도침보다 전주선비긴 눈침보다 탑직도 주디 대체 좀 된데 사문 나와셔제 최대 남랑게 띵년전다냐 버쇼소 세제 다디 뒤 개발진 가르에서나 뒤 개발진지 뒤 개발진들이 가르던 거 열었어요 잠배 되게 다게 퇴바 뒤지나 생예기 투주 상부들이 지금 신의 퇴바면 나라랑게 퇴바지 디 미신기 균이 로마리 나라랑게 온서 퇴비 뒤지기 인세디 내가 참고를 지기지기 균이 도수 영화 말했어 아라랑 경우서 토요송세야디 töbe tü 개발진지 다 때네 네디 가바르스나 자규 풍부리라 아스 당하란주 망치에지 로차르와 비게 네 사우지미 잡아대야 아 때네 자규 수업다 손을 주어르세니 직다 야망부 주어 다디 간제 이메 아주 슈르 심주체 쪽으로 다 개농기 gendu 첨부 땅 전주 준비 gendu 첨부다 탑지도 주대 시도 디나로야 아니 지가서 수료 나발다고 송비 아니 지기 결혼다 결혼마다 아니 균균 첨부스도 아니 년도다 랑겔로 소비 gendu 첨부 아니 하바 도양 단다 태과 준비 중인 인도산배 대 전주 준비 파바 젠리스 준비 아니 전주 준비 gendu 첨부다 아니 탑지도 주대 아니 대체 사모나와 시제비 쉬기 남란 좀다 최자침보 아니 사면 사모동반이 고리 도 잠베 아니 사면나와 시제비 쉬기 남란 이 띵연전的야 아니 좀 된디 냐버슈 셴베 감네 아니 최디 다 뜸버제브리 에스기스레
סוטרה
So if we
מהות
go
החוכמה
to
מתחילה
the
קודם כל
text
בסיפור
now, thus
המסגרת.
did I hear at one
היא
time,
אומרת,
the Bhagavan was dwelling in a
כך
massive
שמעת
vulture's mountain in
פעם
Rajagir
אחת ישב
together with a great
הבגוון דעה פסגת
community of
הנשר
monks and a great
בראג'גריה,
community of
יחד
bodhisattvas.
עם סנגה
At that
גדולה של
time, the
נזירים
Bhagavan
בעלי
was absorbed
הסמכה
in the
מלאה
concentration
וסנגות
of
גדולות של
on the
בודיסטווה.
categories of phenomena called
באותה עת
profound
היה הבגוון
perception.
שקוע בהתעמקות
Also,
מדיטטיבית
at that time,
במניית
the
התופעות,
Bodhisattva
הקרויה
Mahasava Arya
חזות
Avalokiteshvara looked
ועמקות.
upon the very practice of
כמו
the
כן,
profound
באותה עת
perfection
התבונן
wisdom,
הבודיסטווה, מהסטווה אריה
or it's
אבלוקדשוורה
at that,
עצמו במעשה
up
המעמיק של
until the
שלמות
called
החוכמה.
profound perception. Um,
אז יש לנו כאן
So Rinpoche read up
בעצם
to
בסיפור
there.
המסגרת
So then,
של
thus
סוטרת
I
מות
heard at one
החוכמה, יש
time,
לנו
thus I heard at
מאפיינים
one time is
עיקריים
indicating a special
שמציבים את
time. So the special
מדגישים את
time that is indicated
החשיבות או את
is the
הייחוד
a
של
time that
המאורע שבו
I heard.
בודה
It said,
לימד
thus did I
את
hear
מהות
at one
החוכמה.
time. That I
קודם
heard
כל,
is not that others heard, not hearing it through others,
כשהסוטרה
is saying that I
אומרת
directly
כך
heard.
שמעתי,
So this is a special time, the time
זה
that
בעצם
I
מדגיש
directly
עבורנו את
heard
המאפיין
this.
של
And the place,
המאורע או את
the
העת
special
שבו
place
הבודה
was
לימד
at
את
Vulture's
הסוטרה
Peak.
הזאת.
So most of you, many of us have already
וכאן
been there, right? We know this
כשנאמר
place,
כך
Vulture's
שמעתי,
Peak.
זה אומר שבעצם
And then
שמעתי את זה
the
מהבודה
special
באופן אישי,
community
זה לא
is the great
ששמעתי את זה
community of monks
באופן
and the great
עקיף דרך
community of
מישהו אחר
bodhisattvas.
שסיפר לי את מה שהבודה אמר, אלא בעת
And so
הזאת
the great community of monks
שמעתי
and
את זה
bodhisattvas, great in their living in pure
מהבודה.
ethics, and the community of Hera and
המקום
solitary
שבו
realizer monks,
הסוטרה הזאת
and are indicated, and
למדה,
also through
נקרא הר
Avalokiteshvara
פסגת הנשר בראג'גריה,
being one with in the dialogue of the Heart Sutra. The Chenrezig, Arya Chenrezig is present, is indicating the community of bodhisattvas, because Chenrezig of bodhisattva of compassion. And so also is indicating the important Dharma, the deep, profound emptiness that is taught. And so this is indicated through the Buddha, as it says, at that time the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomenal profound perception. So the Buddha from within the state of meditative equipoise focused single-pointedly on emptiness. From within that meditative equipoise, Buddha taught.
נזירים בעלי הסמכה מלאה, לא רק נזירים בעלי הסמכה מלאה, אלא גם נזירות בעלות הסמכה מלאה, וסנגה גדולה באופן כללי, הסוטרה אומרת, סנגה גדולה של נזירים בעלי הסמכה מלאה וסנגה גדולה של בודיסטוות. אז מעבר לסנגה הגדולה של נזירים ונזירות בעלי הסמכה מלאה, היו שם גם אלה ששייכים למסורת השרווקות, הפרטי קבודות, זה אומר אלה ששייכים למרכבה או לדרך של השומעים, אלה ששייכים לדרך או למרכבה של הבודות בכוח עצמם, וכמובן גם אלה ששייכים לסנגה של המהיאנה, וכדי לציין את אלה ששייכים לסנגה של המהיאנה, גם הסוטרה מזכירה את צ'נרזיק או אבלוקiteshvara. הפסקה הזאת שגם מדברת על סיפור המסגרת, אומרת שבאותה עת היה הבגוון שקוע בהתעמקות מדיטטיבית במניית התופעות הקרוי חזות ועמקות. בעצם המשפט הזה מלמד על כך שמה שהבודה לימד בסוטרה הזאת, הדרמה שהבודה לימד בסוטרה הזאת, היא דרמה של חזות ודרמה של עמקות.
好了说，第一个的了呀，我让做同样结果去开始有的是的准备，上面呢写的东北你都比语境暂时没用吧，东北你都比语境上边没加吧，上面呢写的上节中间的个你给的的样的熊的刻度的节嘛，兄弟，语境开发的件是老是多的，语境开发件是的，我让做的。 배나 지기 년도다 랑게다 아니 지기 저기 아니 동반이라 제주도 냠바샤베 냠샤 디지기 잠시 계자 마이바 사면은 세 디지 동반이라 제주도 냠바라 샤 신비 강네 아니 지기 추기 인내 수구슬라바나 신세계 동반이라 제주도 냠바샤베 추기 디기 안에 수구 주바 나서 랭구요레 슬라바나 신 상면 나와 디지 유베 강네 아니 다 되게 송아 계자디 대 도쇼 인도자 뱅아쇼 계자디 용구요 말에 이료자베 이나양 진질라바 세티 동반인의 제지도 녀벌샤시면 아니 신규 진질라 두고 요레스 신규 진질라 부연도 전배 신은 술 진질라 부여스도 대롱어스 패드니기 아니 창주선 바 파와 진레시그레 로마 조 아니 되네 로마 조에 나는 지회슈진디 셔리부 인도 전배 셔리부다 제레시 니가로 산제 좀된디기 진질랍체 아니 단다 출링된 제가 요레스 라반나 신지게 아란즈 남샤균도 빼든들이야 빼나 다람살라랑아 대대가블이야 아니 점점 참바들이 좀도 가면슈에 용구도 아니 저장가 된데 참바들도 계시도 겨울은 비치 응어수 이게 다람살라를 슈 여바다 매번이 버르려야 아니 배들 코랑 냠냠을 쉬우지 쳐봐도도 오세 저장가 아니 군인 슈 여베이나 야 참례양 따제 제네 군인 슈 여요 말했을 삼나 데데 개발 루르데 아니 두 삼모당에도 전에 드린도 치라 연구미도 가리나 스리 군디 팬이님은 좀 로차레 실라도 전에 오 디켜가지도 사야 되게 처바티 해야 되는데 연구도 오시지 송구요래 엔디나 신경 좀 배想받은 데 망고요 봐
ובמיוחד שהסוטרה אומרת שהדרמה הספציפית שאנחנו עוסקים בה היא דרמה של חזות ועמקות, יש לה...
So there's something to say here about when the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. So this profound perception,
איזושהי הבנה נכוחה, realization,
it's funny where I read it, yeah, is this profound perception is not just talking about any wisdom realizing emptiness. So this is not found, I've not come across this in the text directly, but my thought is that this saying that this profound perception here is talking about a very special awareness that is realizing emptiness. So it's a realization of the deep, profound emptiness, but not like the ones of hearers and solitary realizers and so forth. It's a very special awareness because the Buddha's meditative equipoise on emptiness that is resting in the nature of reality. From within that meditative equipoise focused on the nature of reality, from within that equipoise then the Buddha can emanate from the Dhammakaya can emanate the Rupakaya, or from the Dhamma body can emanate the form body. And so then there's the appearance of these form bodies coming from this meditative equipoise focused on the nature of reality. And so like that, then Lord Buddha can bless others' minds from within that meditative equipoise. And so the blessing of the minds of namely here, the great Bodhisattva Arya Chenrezig, the main disciple of Buddha, and the questioner in this dialogue, another main student of the Buddha, Shariputra. And so they were both blessed by the Buddha to have this discussion here. And so this is very powerful and an example, and there are many examples to illustrate this, but one is like when I'm in Dharamshala, sometimes the retreatants come and discuss with me, and they mention that there's a very big difference whether His Holiness the Dalai Lama is abiding in Dharamsala or not. They say that there's a very big difference of when he's abiding there or not. So talking about the blessings that come from his presence here. So sometimes they haven't like checked before whether His Holiness is in town or not, and then they go in the meditation. It's rather that they're doing their meditation in their retreat, and then there's some time where their meditation doesn't go as well as the other time, and at the time when it doesn't go so well, then they later on find out that His Holiness Dalai Lama left town a few days before. So it's like whether His Holiness is in town or not affects the quality of their meditation. So when they find out that His Holiness that when their meditation wasn't going so well, it was when His Holiness had left town a few days before. So as I say, there are many examples like this, but this is one I'm sharing with you to illustrate this, the blessings that come.
מתגורר כבוד הדלאי למה. מדי פעם יש לרימפוצ'ה הזדמנות לפגוש מודדים שחיים באזור דרמסלה, במיוחד יש שעולים לגבעות או ליער שנמצא מעל דרמסלה, שוהים שם, שוכנים שם הרבה מאוד אנשים שנמצאים בריטריט או ריטריטים ארוכים, ובשיחות מסוימות שרימפוצ'ה ניהל איתם בעבר, הם ציינו כשהדלאי למה לא נמצא במשכנו בדרמסלה, זה משפיע על המדיטציה שלהם. שמרגישים שיש ימים שהמדיטציה לא עובדת, או היא קצת חלשה, שזה קצת לא מצליחים לתרגל באופן עוצמתי. עולה המחשבה שהרי הדלאי למה עזב לפני יום או לפני יומיים, אז כן, אז כרגע אני חווה קשיים בתרגול המדיטציה האישי שלי. אז זאת רק דוגמה אחת לאיך הברכות יכולות להשפיע באופן ספציפי פה על הדיון בין אבלוקiteshvara לשריפוטרה, אבל באופן יותר ספציפי גם לתרגול האישי וכו'. יש הרבה מאוד דוגמאות שיכולות להמחיש זאת.
배낭을 참래 메디려 토비 까브야 아니 가시에 통도 치고지 나온로야지 미션베 나오면 저 소소델리아 리드 계제시에 되고 지금 세미나로네 배 로다니 부지 내용에 대한 아주 점링 창맥이다 촌 명소를 봐디 싸박해 말어 봐 가시에는 야 지금 디 통도 고라네야 셈바모디 차야 손으로 저 망부 연구도 와 다데도 된지지 용야디 가르기 아주 추적 돈에 러시아 가르자고 열서를 선배 아니 지기 남에게 레기 아니 대화샤단지기 토네 누수 상마 개발진 거고요. 쓰비요 봐. 다 단다디 값소 저기 진지랍세야다. 그래서 상말로 최적 토네 고 진지랍세야디 야초 토네 진지랍세야마도 누자라 진지랍 시그마레데 인플루언스 해야 봐. 인플루언스 요도가 누가래 인플루언스요나 야래 인플루언스 용초로 봐. 제장 같은 된지게 산제 좀 된지게 사면 나와들야 애냐바 샤시베 안에 심진게 된 제야 해야 돼. 나는 존예를 쭈버땡 그 깨지고 말해 엠페나 디 강바지게 나로려야 베나 겨울음 지표원도 좀 아주 상말로랑 신기 지금 파조 나온 루고 요네면에 상마 주념도 좀 터도 와. 냐나. 그러봐. 다양 라마 찍니지 가선로 레벨에 야 상마야 루루치 얘기 너버딩 알면도 와. 에 겨울음 지표원도 지금 나온 로마도 세면 상마냠도 듀용. 듀니야 고 지금 녀마 니주 상마 춘주찬로야지. 그 드주 캬버 땡땡 나도 요즘 전에 딘데 좀 된데 시에슈가 가려야 아니 셔리불다 아니 진짜레스를 소바도 상매 보러야 초링 시고를 하고 요야지 좀 된데 이 도지 거린 된 위로레스야지 다 단다고 디즈 띵이지기 투기 너버든 저 요레스 그래
אחרי הכל, אנחנו פוגשים אנשים שונים במהלך היום, במהלך חיינו. יש אנשים שאנחנו פוגשים שהם מאוד שמחים על
Shay gave an
המפגש.
example when we see, I
נוחים
didn't catch the
לדבר
word which we see,
ולשוחח, הם
but
רוצים לשוחח,
basically when we see
מקבלים אותנו
something in the world,
סרוטונין,
we either like it or don't like
תרופות.
it, right? And
וכמובן שגם
you
יש
know, we
בעולם
can see that
אנשים
in the world, we all
שכאשר
have different
אנחנו
feelings and experiences
פוגשים
with the
בהם,
things we
יש
encounter,
מין
don't we?
תחושה כזאת
And
שיש
they're
בהם
different.
עצבות,
So for what some people like, some when people meet with something they like and
אבל
some they don't
מאחר
like,
שאנחנו עוסקים בנושא
the
הזה
same people meet with it and they don't like it, right? So from the Dharma perspective, this is coming independence upon our previous karma ripening, whether we like something or don't like it. But when we talk about blessings, so the blessings from a Dharma perspective is only with respect to a good influence. We don't refer to blessing with things that are a bad influence. The blessings are things that come from a good influence. So when the Buddha was in this meditative equipoise on the profound meaning of emptiness, it was for the sake of all sentient beings. It was for all sentient beings' benefit that Buddha rested in that meditative equipoise on emptiness. And so when, like for example, when His Holiness the Dalai Lama comes into a room, to give a teaching, whether we all like each other or not, so many people gather for that teaching, don't we? We fill the place. But then if there's a lesser, say, a less known Lama giving a teaching, then we don't all come gathering from everywhere to fill that room, do we? So we can see when His Holiness gives a teaching, then masses of people will gather together, whether they like each other or not. And likewise, here at Vulture's Peak in Rajagir, when Lord Buddha gave the teaching on the deep and profound emptiness, so many people gathered together in that place to listen to the teaching, that Arya Avalokiteshvara and so forth. And this is all coming through the blessing of the power of that concentration on the profound emptiness.
לצבור סביבו כל כך הרבה קהל כל כך גדול, בעוד שמורים אחרים, רימפוצ'ה אומר לדוגמה כמוהו, אין לו את היכולת הזאת של כבוד הדלאי למה. אז באופן דומה, פה שאנחנו עוסקים בסיפור המסגרת, שבו בתקופתו של הבודה, כשהוא לימד את סוטרת מהות החוכמה, הייתה לו את היכולת הזאת לקבץ סביבו קהל עצום של אנשים, וביניהם הוא הביא אליו את אריה אבלוקiteshvara, את שריפוטרה, ומתוך הסמאדי שלו, מתוך הריכוז החד-נקודתי שלו, שהיה עוצמתי, הם ערכו את הדיון הזה.
Hola, so. 다디 인도 점베 아니 테네 띵이진다 냠버 슈크소스. 다 아니 띵띵데 띵이진다 냠버 슈베 갑들이야. 아니 진질랍체. 아니 천주선바 디첸데 마ጆ데 천주선바 선바 첨부. 천주선바 선바 첨부 지지 직니 된도가 당보들 천주선바체. 니바들라 천주선 선바 첨부세지. 니 여베 나로네 단다 저지기 나로라야. 야고 쉬지도 디 롤 펜보죠. 저장 당보 전주 셈바세야디 가르레스라베나 아니 산지다 전주 셈바테니 장sem 랑든 밍네스 랑든 밍네 아니 랑든 터버 되베나 전주 셈바 랑든 밍체 전주 셈 터보도스 디 이도점베 당보델라 전주 셈바 바우세디 랑든 밍네 말아 전주 셈고도 디 삼로지 레온데 전주 셈바세 당보드레스 니버디 셴들 밍네 터번 되베나스 셴게들 밍체 아니 전주 셈디 기고도스 시럽지 파르 심바도 터고도스 랑든 셴든 니가 밍데 당보디기 전주 셈바세 당보디기 랑든도 셈바 첨보스도 셈베 셴든도 아니 가리고도 세대 아니 된담 전주 셈세네레 아니 시럽지 파르도 쳔바스네레 디고도스 랑든다 셴든 니가 밍데 디고도스 라온도 잠베 전주 셈바 셈바 쳔보 아니 파바젠레시 세드 뭐 파바젠레시 울려야 전주 셈바 셈바 쳔보 수준 로고나데 어디 데레세 어디데 데와디야 고시도 저장 디잖아 수준도 줘
הסוטרה ממשיכה
So
ואומרת,
at that
כמו כן,
time, the Bhagavan
באותה
was absorbed in the
התבונן
concentration on the
הבודהיסטווה
categories of
מהסטווה אריה
phenomenal profound perception.
ועוצמה במעשה
Also at that
המעמיק של
time, the
שלמות
Bodhisattva Mahasava Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the
אז
very
כאן
practice of the
אנחנו
profound perfection of wisdom.
מתייחסים
So here,
הסוטרה
the
מתייחסת
Bodhisattva Mahasava Arya
לאריה
Avalokiteshvara.
אבלוקדשוורה
In the
כבודhiסטווה, לא רק
text
כבודhiסטווה, אלא
here it says from that
כמהסטווה.
at that time of
מי
the
שיש בו את
profound
תודעת ההערה,
concentration on
מהסטווה,
emptiness,
great being.
the great, it says the Bodhisattva
אז
Mahasattva,
יש
right?
חשיבות
The
מסוימת
There's two,
להדגשה
the
הזאת, לחזרה,
Bodhisattva and the Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara. So
וחלק
in
מהפרשנויות
some
שרינפושה
scholars
קרא,
give
הוא
these
מצא
different
אותה שלפחות היא סייעה לו
meanings
להבין
to
את
the why it's
החשיבות של
emphasized twice,
צמד
this
המילים האלה,
Sattva and
בודיסטווה,
Mahasattva, Bodhisattva and Mahasattva.
אז
So
קודם כל,
they give
בודיסטווה,
this nice
כשאומרים
this nice
בודיסטווה, מדגישה
explanation
את
that I thought to share with you
האופן
now.
שבו
The
בודיסטווה
first, the Bodhisattva, is
טיפח,
in
הוא הם טיפחו
with respect to
את הבודיצ'יטה
the
בהבנה
purpose for going into
שזה יהיה
this
לתועלת עבורם
this
במעשיהם.
deep concentration on the profound meaning of
זאת המילה
emptiness.
הראשונה.
There are two purposes
מתוך
for it. It's for
התמקדות
one is
ברווח
through observing one's own
שאני אקבל
purpose and through observing others' purpose. And the
אני מטפח את
Bodhisattva
הבודיצ'יטה. זאת
is
המילה הראשונה,
with referring
בודיסטווה.
to the through
המילה
observing that
השנייה,
concentration,
מהסטווה,
through entering that concentration
מתמקדת
for one's own purpose,
מתוך
observing
ההתמקדות
one's own
לתועלת
purpose and
הזולת,
thinking, in order to accomplish my own
עולה
purpose,
השאלה,
I need to
מה
engage,
דרוש
enter that
עבורי כדי
that
להיות
meditative
לתועלת הסביבה
concentration on the
עבור הזולת?
profound.
מה
So
שדרוש
for
עבורי
this,
כדי להיות לתועלת
with that
הזולת זה
as their
ליצור לכונן
objective
את
observation for
הבודיצ'יטה
one's own purpose to enter that
האולטימטיבית.
concentration, they are called the
בעצם
Bodhisattva.
זה ההתמקדות
But then the second
ברווחת הזולת, בתועלת הזולת, היא מה
objective
שהמילה
is for the
השנייה
purpose of
מצביעה עליו,
others.
מהסטווה.
And so when that concentration is entered into or observed for the benefit of others, it is the
데네 디 슈델이야. 제주서버 서버치버 버버 제르스 버르도 치버 사메쮸바니라 나버 따징. 풍봉어버 대다이 라양랑 신기 넘버 따오 스르잠베 디 nenga chibu shibujiri ta di nga zo loma zo chö chedo yunye jigi practitioner yindu chok ta 상말로게 di samu karko hogu kursi di gado dila ya dili chenju samba papa chenju si di lobjong nang shugu yore si yore ta lobjong kandiji nang shugu yore si zambe samyo jeba nila nambar tajing jeba yang nang do chen shugu che tajing 풍뽕하고 제바 지단에 삼회 제바니라 나발다 진스리 지 최탐자랑 신디 무슨 뭐로버레서 디지 공부시 네가 강라 양교 아니 리리리 개발치도 얘는 풍뽕하고야 수 소화 düzeyse 리리리 스니디 아니 당연한 뭐로버디 간제지를 샤스디 풍뽕하려도 그래서 제바치는도 시제 아니 양타버 따디 슈디베 갑텔라 아니 신의 산제 좀 된디기 칭질랍셔 저기 가사다 니버디 아니 셰리프 초페제 다 컨디슈에 고 쪼그레스 이 구리슈디어다디
הפסקה הזאת שאומרת כמו כן באותה עת התבונן הבודיסטווה מהסטווה אריה אבלוקדשווה רב העוצמה במעשה המעמיק של שלמות
so
החוכמה
just to finish
והתבונן אף
the
בחמשת
second
המרחבים האלה
the
כמקים
Mahasattva
מעץ
is
המדרגה
referring to the
עבורנו
Arya of
נקודה גדולה
Avalokiteshvara is
ונקודה
called the
חשובה.
Mahasattva through his
היא נקודה
observing
חשובה
the
לכל מי
purpose of
שמתרגל את
others
הדרמה, לכל
for
מי
their purpose. I
שמתרגל
need
את
the ultimate
הדרמה.
mind of
הנקודה הזאת
enlightenment. I need the perfection of wisdom.
היא
For this reason, I entered
מומחשת פה
the
עבורנו על
meditative
ידי המעשה
concentration on
של
emptiness. So this is
אבלוקדשווה
why the
בעצם זה.
Mahasattva Arya,
אז באותה עת
Bodhisattva
כנראה זה
Mahasattva Arya
בעצמו
is
גם
put before
למד
Avalokiteshvara.
גם למד
So then goes on, the text
בשעת
goes on to
אצלנו
say
למד,
that
אז
Bodhisattva
הוא למד
Mahasava Arya
את
Avalokiteshvara
המעשה
looked
המעמיק
upon the very practice
של
of the
שלמות
profound
החוכמה.
perfection of wisdom and beheld
לא רק
those
שהוא
five
למד את
aggregates
המעשה
also as empty of inherent
המעמיק
nature.
של שלמות החוכמה, אלא הוא
So this is
הרחיב
very important,
בלימודיו, הוא עשה זאת
this,
שוב
especially
ושוב
for us who are
ושוב.
the
והאופן
students
שבו
following the
הוא
Buddha's teachings, that we really need to pay
העמיק
special attention to this.
בלימודיו
So
בשלמות החוכמה,
this
הוא התבונן אף
beholding
בחמשת
those five
המצרפים
aggregates
האלה
also as
כלקים
inherent nature
מעצם
is really
הדבר.
important.
אז הוא
It's
התבונן
emphasized and we need to
בחמשת
investigate each of the
המצרפים,
aggregates
מצרף
to see how
הגוף
we are not
והמצרף
in,
המצרף הפיזי,
we don't
מצרף
exist really
התחושות או
inherently,
התחושה,
intrinsically.
מצרף
So investigating and analyzing, so beholding those five aggregates as empty of inherent nature is investigating and analyzing each of the aggregates, the form aggregate, the feeling aggregate, discrimination aggregate, and so forth, one by one, and seeing how the self does not exist there independently, inherently, and through investigating all those aggregates as inherent in nature. And only then does it come the second person who was blessed by the Buddha, the second one who received those blessings, Shariputra. Only then does he come into to engage in the discussion.
ואז מצטרף לסיפור המסגרת הזה הבן אדם השני, שהוא עושה זאת מתוך ברכותיו של הבודה. אז ניגש לאבלוקטשוורה שריפוטרה ושואל אותו שאלה.
다디 인도 전에 아니 셔리푸기 저거 슈드 저는 셔리푸드 지단에 가서 그래 다 년토인스 그러마 제장가 먼저 디 저거디 슈비가라 전주선비 저거 슈비도 지고 지냐요래 제가 산지 좀 된디기 신지랍지 셔리푸 저거 가르 슈고요래서도 처단단 뭐 셔리푸 아니 전주선바 선바치고 파바제레스 원줄라 디게 지메소스 저거 슈브레스 저거 가르 슈브레스데 Rigi pomo kanlala shiraje parode chimba same jaba dobate jita labar chas. Rigi pomo sedu zambeta rig sehati ngaranzu jidani mushibi yobe nanan rig sehati ane ngaranzu pena rangshin nirik sehati jik koshabe nanyana. Rangshin nirik sehati indu zambe ngaranzu jugi semgi semgi rangshin le time mashubati semgi rangshin le time mashube rawa podamo yongso zoba yinu jo da ji podamo sedu zambe inji minji nga zo pumunji go yo ma da ji semjen 탐제 슬람나 거로 semjen 탐지 기 줄래 아니 셈 코랑기 랑신래야 아니 팀에 주네 레버 머슈베 대조기 아니 랑싱오 딘데레데 이나양 타고 그래서 루부기 팀에기 드바텔라 때네 아니 팀아 세고도스 팀아 세고도 잠베 팀아 세야디 그 타밤 라맘 따지기 냠보더데 아니 사면 사모데리샤스 사면체데리샤스 똥바니데리샤스 딘데 사면체바 더바 테이스 더바 세도자메 semjen rege ngosun döbe gece mare semjen tamje dewan döbe inza dewan dö seyadi nalola dunye tendu mi döbe samlo yö dinge kyangyares de yedo zabe dizogi ani dunye tendu mebe döbati kandeze chegu yore samodela kandeze labu yore esene tiwa shüdo zabe shiri bugi ngaranzo changma tadang ngaranzo screen gan yö de changma dizamase 지기 대화들 동의 민두기기 아니 semjen 용소 조베 찹제제니 저거디 제레스도 주고도 와 제장가 되게 가르고도 걸세도 저거 난케 저거야 표게 저거 렌자게 아니 진지라게 순가로 태고 준비기 강사직 나로도 도수 조디도 와
ואז מגיעה הפסקה הבאה ואומרת, מאחר שאנחנו כאן עוסקים בשריפוטרה, אומר, ואז מכוח הבודה, דרך באמצעות ברכותיו של הבודה, אמר כך
So at the
שריפוטרה
time that
נקרא
Shariputra asked his question, now generally Shariputra is considered as a hearer, but his question is exactly the same as a Bodhisattva's question. So as I say, let me find in the English.
בחלק מהגרסאות, השאלה ששריפוטרה שואל את אבלוקטשוורה היא, כיצד יתאמן אותו בן השושלת או תתאמן אותה בת השושלת?
Then through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasava Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes the profound activity of the profound perfection? Sorry. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom?
ג'נרזית,
So
והיה
this
כמובן
question,
היה בודיסטווה. וזה בעצם
how should any
מראה לנו שהאימון
son of the lineage wish to train? Sometimes it's translated, how should any child of the lineage
לעבור,
wish
לעסוק
to
בו,
train?
כדי
So
להתאמן בשלמות
this is,
החוכמה, במעשה המעמיק של שלמות החוכמה.
whether we're male or female,
המילים
this
עצמם,
doesn't have a
פה
distinction.
בסוף
Where
משמעות החוכמה,
this is with
מדברות
relation to
על
all
בן או
sentient
בת
beings. So for
השושלת.
who should train in the
והשושלת
profound
עצמה,
perfection of wisdom
השושלת הוא
is for all sentient beings, because
מונח
the naturally
שמשתמשים בו בשיעורים
all
ספציפיים
sentient beings
במסורת
have the naturally
הבודהיסטית.
present
וחלק
potential.
ממונח
So this naturally present potential,
שאנחנו קוראים לו
which
בדרך
exists
כלל
in our
טבע
minds,
הבודה, אבל
is
בעצם
that
אם נהיה יותר
the mind's
מדויקים
nature is
בתרגום,
that the
אז אנחנו מדברים
stains
על
have never
כך
entered into the
שלכולם
nature
יש
of the mind.
את שושלת הבודה,
So,
והשושלת הספציפית פה שאנחנו
so with
רוצים
this
לעסוק
understanding
בו,
of the naturally present
לדבר בה,
potential,
היא
Shariputra engaged
שושלת
in this question, asking,
שנקראת
how should we
השושלת
train?
שנוכחת
Because
תמידית,
whether you're
וגם
male or female,
באופן
it's,
טבעי.
we're all the same. Actually,
השושלת
it's the same for
שנוכחת
all
באופן
sentient
טבעי,
beings,
naturally
that we
available
have this
lineage
naturally present
באנגלית.
potential, that the nature of the mind
אז
is
השושלת הזאת
pure, the
שנוכחת
stains have never
באופן
entered into the
טבעי,
nature of the
היא
mind.
משהו
Yet
שבעצם
we have these
נמצא באופן
adventitious
טבעי
stains.
אצל
The
כל
mind is
היצורים האחרים, כל בעלי
temporarily
החיים.
together with these adventitious stains.
והטבע הזה של
Therefore, we need to
התודעה הוא
cease or
לא
put a
טבע
stop to
שאליו
those
נכנסו
stains,
מזהמים
whoever
או
we are.
פגמים
And
מסוימים.
so,
הוא לא
what we can say is the
מוכתם באופן
method or the
טבעי,
path or the antidote
אלא
to overcome the
מדי
stains
פעם
of these afflictions is
עולים
emptiness, or the wisdom
נוצרים
realizing
איזשהם
emptiness.
זיהומים שהם
And so,
זמניים או
Buddha's
ארעיים, והם
like the hope is,
נכנסים
or the wish is not just for one
ומרעילים
person,
את
it's
התודעה, אבל
all sentient beings who want
הכתמים האלה,
happiness and not want
הזיהומים האלה,
suffering,
הם לא
right?
נכנסו אל
And so,
תוך טבע
how,
התודעה.
and there's a
בעצם
method of how we
הטבע
can
הזה,
all
טבע התודעה
completely
שהוא לא
cease all
מוכתם
the
על ידי
suffering. And so all of us here on the
הכתמים או
screen together
המזהמים
now,
הזמניים
and
הרעים
all
האלה,
sentient
הוא
beings,
השושלת שנוכחת
we're all the same
באופן
in
טבעי
wanting
אצל
happiness and not wanting suffering,
בן
and
השושלת או
how
בת
to
השושלת.
overcome and completely
אנחנו לא
cease
צריכים
all this suffering.
לדבוק באיזשהו מגדר
So
ספציפי, אפשר לומר
Shariputra
בעצם אצל
asked this
כל
question on
בעלי
all of our
התודעה.
behalf, on the
נמצא
behalf of
אצל
all of us on
כל
the screen, on behalf of all
בעלי
sentient beings.
התודעה. אז
And so the
כל
questioner
בעלי
and the
התודעה
answerer of
שלהם
the
יש את
question
השושלת
and
שנוכחת
the
באופן
person who
טבעי.
blessed the question,
השאלה
actually,
פה נשאלת
or this
איך
discussion, they
עליהם
are all
להתאמן במעשה
Mahayanas,
המעמיק של שלמות החוכמה.
all Mahayana
אמ,
practitioners.
אז בעצם, מאחר שהשאלה הזאת שואלת לגבי כל בעלי התודעה, היא לא תחומה רק לאלה לדוגמה שנמצאים פה כרגע בשיעורים של סרקונג רינפוצ'ה שעוסקים בסוטרה הזאת פה על המסך, אלא היא בעצם רלוונטית לכולם. לכולם ובאופן ספציפי לכאלה שרוצים להשתחרר מהסבל. איך על כל בעלי התודעה שרוצים להשתחרר מהסבל, מסבלותיהם להתאמן, אז בעצם הם צריכים להתאמן במעשה המעמיק של שלמות החוכמה, איך הם יעשו זאת. אז פה הדיון עצמו בעצם כולל כמה אלמנטים. יש את מי ששואל את השאלה, מי שנשאל את השאלה באופן ספציפי, מי שנותן את התשובה, וגם את הברכות של הבודה שנתנו את הסיפור המסגרת לכל הדיון הזה. והם בעצם, כל הדיון הזה נערך עבור כל בעלי התודעה, כל מי שרוצה או רוצה להשתחרר מהסבל, איך עליהם לעסוק במעשה המעמיק של שלמות החוכמה.
다 인주 점be 아니 제당아 다 되게 랜들이야. 아니 양디 랜들이야. 제레스게 양 차상지 고는 속도 람산 랜경면도 랜경도 배 고샵던 때문에 돈에 마경도 가르친 것도 전주 선바 첨부 파바 제레스 운주게 차다다 뭐 셔럽 다디 볼라 되게 지매서 가르마기도 쓰나 가르송도 슬라베나 셔리보 리기 봄 뭐 칸라라 시라게 파르도 침바 사면 줘봐 더바 대지다 라버차 따버차 대지 다 저랑 라바는 신 아니 동해민도 아 대화 동해민도의 심진 컨디지 임베이나야 대다기 아니 사면 사물라 컨디스 따고래 라나스 아니 사물라 따단데 풍봉하고 대다장 랑신기 동반나바 양타바 제소다고 시류점배 풍봉하고 세대 다 초바들이 초바 맞은 몰라 야게를 이렇게고 요러와 야게를 이렇게 온도 녀라 속로 컨디스 봐다 되네 초알라다 뒤질라다 넘버 셔발라 또 스르르르르네 아니 코랑게 뇌네 아니 뭐도봐 코랑기 뇌에 속세야 돼 소화세야 돼 뒤시세야 돼 코랑기 뇌에 매봐도 소화래 온도 잠배 야기 시군도 아니 되네 타마들랑 신기 슉디기 아니 소화 코랑 야게르르네 랑은 마도나 소바양 코랑도 순주 두고 매봐디 개공도 잠배 제장가 홍봉하고 대다 짱 신기 나바 양다고 지수 따오 제장가 셔리부고 저마슈고네 파와진레스 랑일이야 곰데리 견이 슈용도 잠배 딜렌견도 시비차요 와 제장가 양다고 지수 따오스 din dordine ba chikte ane tene geba ta pasamno tangdang di ane toni shigoro se de ane ta di gyumjin kharre do se de zambe ane so tongba ni so de tongba ni shema tongba ni le jin su shen ma yin no se de ane toni shigoro de so ndo wa
זאת השאלה שאריה אבלוקדשפר נשאל על ידי שריפוטרה, וכשהוא ענה לשאלה הזאת הוא לא ענה לה באופן מיידי, אלא הוא עשה זאת מתוך כבוד. והסוטרה אומרת, הסוטרה
Then when
מספרת
we
על
come
כך.
to the
באופן
response
הבא. היא אומרת,
from the Arya Chenrezig, Arya
שאמר זאת
Avalokiteshvara,
השיב ככה בודיסטווה מהסטווה, אריה אבלוקדשפרה,
Arya
ורצה לשאול
Avalokiteshvara
פוטרה
doesn't
answer.
just
ככה
go
הוא
straight
ענה,
into giving the
התחיל קודם
answer.
כל בלומר
He gives the
שפוטרה,
answer thoroughly and
בן
gradually,
השושלת או בת
and from the
השושלת,
beginning with
זאת אומרת,
very
כל
respectfully.
בעלי התודעה.
So,
כל מי שרוצה או רוצה
as it says in the text, he
להשתחרר
said
מהסבל,
that, and the
כל מי
Bodhisattva
שרוצה
Mahasava
בסבל,
Arya
כל מי שרוצה
Avalokiteshvara said this to
אושר
the
ואושר
Venerable
חיים.
Shadvariputra.
עליהם לעסוק במעשה המעמיק
Shariputra,
של
any
שכינות
son of the
הרוחנית.
lineage
עליהם
or daughter of
להתבונן
the
כך.
lineage who wishes to practice the
התבוננו עד
activity
תום
of the
אף לחמשת
profound perfection
המצרפים
of
האלה
wisdom
כריקים
should look upon it
מעצם
like this,
טבעם.
correctly and
אז
repeatedly beholding those
כל מי
five
שרוצה
aggregates
או רוצה,
also as an empty of inherent
אושר
nature.
ורווחה אישית. כל מי שלא רוצה
So
בסבל,
Arya Avalokiteshvara says,
איך
Shariputra,
הם
just as you
צריכים
say, any sentient being who
להתבונן
wishes happiness and not to suffer, how should they
בהשקפה
observe the
המעמיקה,
profound perfection of
בעמקות.
wisdom?
זאת השאלה.
So it's through observing the five
כדי לענות על
aggregates as
השאלה על
empty of
האופן
inherent
שבו הם צריכים
existence.
להתבונן
And so the
בעמקות,
five aggregates are a collection, right? So
אבלוקדשפר
in order to
אומר,
refute the
התבוננו עד
collection
תום
as
אף
empty of
לחמשת
inherent
המצרפים האלה
nature, we
כריקים
need to
מעצם
refute
טבעם.
each of the parts of the collection
אז
individually. So
עלינו
we go
להתבונן
through
במצרפים
the
כריקים מעצם
the
טבעם,
form
קודם
aggregate
כל
is
באופן
empty of
ספציפי
intrinsic
כלפי כל אחד
existence.
מהמצרפים.
It doesn't really
להתבונן
intrinsically exist.
במצרף
And the
הגוף, או
feeling
המצרף הפיזי,
aggregate, the discrimination
באופן שהוא
aggregate,
לא מבוסס מצידו הוא, לא
the
מוכה מצידו הוא.
the compositional
באותו
factors
אופן
aggregate, and the
מצרף התחושה,
mental
מצרף
consciousness
ההבחנה,
aggregate, one by
מצרף
one,
הגורמים המורכבים,
refuting any of them
מצרף
having any independent,
התודעה
intrinsically
הראשית,
existence. And
שלהתבונן
so through refuting
בכל אחד
or
מהמצרפים
negating
באופן ספציפי
intrinsically
נראה שהוא
existent
לא
aggregate
קיים, לא
individually,
מבוסס
then you
מצידו הוא.
can refute the collection as,
עכשיו המצרפים האלה, אנחנו
of
קוראים
having any
למצרפים האלה
intrinsic nature.
האוסף
Unless
של
you
חמשת
refute the
המצרפים.
individual aggregates
וכל
one by
אחד
one, you can't
מהמצרפים
say that the
הוא
collection doesn't intrinsically
חלק
exist. So it's
מהאוסף.
through doing that
הוא
process
ממנו,
one by one
מה
to the
שקוראים חבר
aggregates.
באוסף,
So
הוא חלק
so there's
מהאוסף.
why it
אז
says
בעצם,
the
אם אנחנו
um,
יכולים להתבונן בכל אחד
re-
מהמצרפים,
repeatedly beholding,
ולהבין
should look
שכל
upon
אחד
like
מהם
this, correctly and
בנפרד
repeatedly beholding those five
הוא
aggregates
לא
also
מתקיים
empty of
מצידו הוא.
inherent nature. Through by
מתוך זה
refuting each of the
אנחנו גם
aggregates
יכולים גם
individually,
להבין
and
שגם
then you
האוסף
can
שלהם
refute the
לא
whole
מתקיים
collection of the
מצידו הוא.
aggregates as empty of inherent nature. So this is very important. And and so
אז בעצם,
then
אבלוקדשפר צ'נרזיק
so before
ששאל את
Shariputra
השאלה
asked this
והבין
question,
את
then before that, prior to
הנקודה
that,
הזאת,
Arya
הוא אומר
Avalokiteshvara
זאת
engaged in that profound
לשריפוטרה. הוא אומר,
meditation on the profound
התבוננו כך,
perfection of
התבוננו
wisdom
עד תום אף
before
לחמשת המצרפים האלה
giving his
כריקים
answer
מעצם
to
טבעם. עכשיו,
Shariputra, before Shariputra
זאת
engaged,
תשובה שהיא
delivered his
די
question.
בסיסית
So
ומתומצתת,
then we
ואז
go
הוא
on
הולך
to
ומרחיב על האופן
the
שבו הם
fourfold
צריכים
or the
להתבונן
four
בחמשת
doors of
המצרפים.
emptiness. As it
הוא
says,
אומר
form is
שהם צריכים
empty.
להתבונן
So
בכל מצרף
down in
באופן
the text,
ספציפי,
look at those
אינדיבידואלי,
five
על
aggregates
ידי
also
מה
as empty
שנקרא
of inherent
באנגלית
nature.
the
Form
full
is empty.
form
Emptiness is
emptiness,
form.
ארבעת
Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than
ארבעת
emptiness.
הרקויות. אז ארבעת הרקויות,
But these are the
הרקויות,
four doors of emptiness, or the fourfold emptiness.
או ארבעת הסעיפים, הם החומר ריק, הריקות היא חומר, אין ריקות מלבד חומר, ואף אין חומר מלבד ריקות. אלה הם ארבעת סעיפי הריקות.
알았어. 다디 인도 잠베 동보 풍봉하고 대다장랑 신기 동바 넘버를 양다바를 제소 따오 세게 식디기 다 노르덴 손럽지. 아, 인 노르덴데 노르덴데 때문에 잠베 다 되네 디 딘디기 공부 시단데 아니 아주 단다 때야다 가디 파라 섬가디 부대 있어 하세도 소람 졸람 통람 고람 밀루람 봐도 용서 조비 곰자사 디가나 잡고 요레스 디가나 곰자고 이도 잠베 풍봉어보다 다자랑 신경 넘어 양 닭벌어져서 따고 양내 양도 따고 요래 양 닭벌어 따고 요래세 어디기 시디기 네버디 디요래 대인도 잠베 다딘데 양내 양도 아니 제수 아니 따고 이도 잠베 아니 따야디 답변나 초람디 값수 아니 가르스타고 요래세디 아니 tunji tsuju toba. Ko aso ta gyumzen yangda dan rigwa yangda la teni rogo uyo re. Di ido zo chojor gi ne kapso, chonamdo jolam gi kapso, tunji tsuju togo res. Gade seti. Ta teni tolam gi kapso, ngosumdo togo. Wa? Teni golam gi kapso, ngosumdo togo simbati, 양내 양도 ko nga 손 kumshi di ma sonne, mata gi pato gomu yudu zambe, 아니 고람지 값수 아니 가디 파라상 가디 세 파도 디로 다 되네 밀로람 가수 부다이 소하 시두잠베 단지 사면나와 세 찍드나 신체지 동반일이야 제주도 냐바 샤 신빙 안네 아니 심징기 템베 밀흥기 두바 세데 워 디용도 잠베 아니 부다이 소하 세디 디간라 양 동반일 제주 냐바 샤기도와 동반일 제주도 냐바 마샤베 갑 찌게 요만에 다 디가도 제장아 디리지고 요레스 다람 야야야 줘야라 어디 리지 드레샤 דורטינגסו.
אז בעצם התחלנו קודם כל בלומר שכאן
So these words, and behold those five aggregates also as inherent or empty behold those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. This is a abbreviated teaching on the four aggregates of empty of inherent existence. But then when we go further in the text, we come to the mantra, the perfection of wisdom. On page 6 of the booklet, you have opposite to the heart, the perfection of wisdom title. So down the bottom, Hayata Gati Gati Paragati Parasam Gati Buddhisoha. Hopefully you found it there, you're familiar with it. So this mantra, the perfection of wisdom, it encompasses the path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, and path of no more learning. And it teaches that this is the complete, thorough meditation on the lack of inherent nature of all phenomena. So it shows that you need to meditate on these thoroughly, meditate on these thoroughly. So this there's this word yandapa like this perfectly in the Tibetan, and it's referring to here that again and again, thoroughly, again and again, meditating on emptiness. So when at the time of the path of preparation, one meditates on emptiness through the medium of a generic image. So you have a mental construct, a mental image of emptiness, and through that you realize emptiness. And this is the first gate, gate. So the first gate is the path of accumulation and the path of preparation, actually. The path of accumulation and path of preparation. At that time, one is meditating on emptiness through the medium of a generic image. And then at the time of the path of seeing, one has this direct or perceptual realization of emptiness. And this is the second gate. And then on the path of meditation, this perceptual realization of emptiness that one has already gained, one then familiarizes with that again and again and again, and thoroughly habituating with this perceptual realization of emptiness. And this is the parasamgati. And then the path of no more learning is indicated by the bodhisoha. And so this bodhisoha is this Yagi has his coffee, I have a tea.
Okay.
The path
And
of no more
so,
learning is
as
the Bodhisattva. This is the
כשאנחנו
Zangmo
עוסקים
Nangwa,
במנטרה
the
של
appearance of the
שלמות
profound
החוכמה,
meaning. And so
מתחילה
the
בתאייתה,
this
והגעתי
Bodhisattva
לשורה
is
בדרך
this
הראשונה,
meditative equipoise
דרך
on the profound meaning of emptiness,
הצבירה,
or the Buddha's
הגעתי,
profound
הדרך השנייה,
concentration
דרך
on the
ההכנה,
perfection of wisdom,
פרגעתי,
of emptiness.
קשורה בדרך השלישית,
This,
דרך הראייה,
through
שבה
this, then Buddha is
המתאמן
able
או
to
המתאמנת רואים בצורה ישירה את הריקות.
accomplish the welfare of
הדרך
all
הרביעית
sentient beings
נקראת דרך
effortlessly and
המדיטציה,
spontaneously.
פרסמגתה,
And so, what this mantra
ובדרך
encompasses, from the
הזאת,
path of
אחרי
accumulation to the path of
שהמתאמן
no
או
more learning,
המתאמנת
is
רואים
showing us that
בצורה
actually there's no time when one is
ישירה
not
בפעם
meditating
הראשונה את
on the
הריקות, הם
profound
מביטים על זה
meaning of
שוב
emptiness, the
ושוב
profound
כדי
perfection
לבנות
of wisdom.
הבדלים או תבניות מנטליות, עד שמשלימים את העבודה הזאת ומגשימים את הדרך החמישית שנקראת הדרך שלא דורשת אימון נוסף, שבה בעצם הם נמצאים באיזון מדיטטיבי, בריכוז של איזון מדיטטיבית על חזות ועמקות, ומתוך האיזון המדיטטיבי הזה הם מסייעים, מועילים לכל בעלי התודעה. למעשה אנחנו אומרים שאין אפילו מועד אחד, אין דקה אחת או שנייה אחת שבה בודה הוא או היא לא שוהים באיזון מדיטטיבי. מתוך זה, פרסמגתה, מתוך זה בודי סואה, המילה האחרונה במנטרה הזאת, בודי, מתייחסת לשלב הזה, לדרך שלא דורשת אימון נוסף.
Kobe.
Coffee.
Oh, yes. 다티니, 다디 나노니 키치시디 녀르야 찌기드지도아. 정신기 동바 넘버 양 타버 제수 따오 스드 다킹기 로치. 동바니디 델샤. 딜라 다킹기 로치 고고요레 세티. 다킹기 로치 고고요레 스드 잠베 다킹기 로 델라 아니 직 차상체 용해 매버치. 로 믹스해지 고고요레스. 다디닌가 첨부리. 제장한 알아는 저 된담로 주베 로 타니엘 주베 로 세티. 디니치 녀라 야고치 야와지 젬마토베이나 아니 제장가 남셔준도 겨워를 지금 송구여버나 신 아니 된담로 주베 로지기 타니엘 주베이나 타니에 없으셔 그러다 아스 아니 제장가 디기 말한 중에 디니기 남샤야고 신구도 오세 내가 데도 슬레브로 와라 다디나라 디나 신기 말한 중에 야 아니 개치슈직 다당에 라비아 카를 하요르스도 다든지 동반일이야 제바치긴 로텔이야 딘디 로드 말레공 랑냐 개치슈 온도도 마소네 당 아주만 손에 동반일이야 지기 삼로당 등 유행기 미치기 콜레야 온도도 마소네 가리고 요르 온도 차견도 마소네 가리고 요르스도 차제야다메 데비아라서 데조 단다 말이 차나면 데다 데조 초사도 좀 마시고 응연들에 교치 가리고 요르스 두산베 아니 산지 좀 된디기 두시 탐지기 나네 초도 줘바디 아니 네버더비 두시 셜면더비 두시 어도 두시 숨숨고 요바 어디나로네 두시 탐지기 나는 소소랑 아주 가리고 도세도 잠베 네버더비 두시도 고고요도 ngaranzolia 네버더비 두시도 간디고 요레 시티 디기다 단다 삼모동만이야 제버치긴게 로디 말레응을야 아니 제상가 반된 다와 잡이기 반된 다와 잡이기 우모주비기 아니 심지 투비기 될야 아니 다음에 고를 송은도 전에 아니 용문교나 뭐 로직소라 달리 좀 로유 통조신 다네 디유도 도지네 내줘봐야 다네 고거 체세 직지 송고이바 온디 다디남 디 간디스 고고요레세데 딘디 동반일 제바 체진 로디 그 메디 간디스 고고요레세 내줘봐 나시 고고요레스 내주베기 어느 동반일이야 제가 근데 지금도 슬라이드 잡에 아니 배나 마란조 드린 것은 나와지부터 시제 아니 동반일 사무당에 있어요 가과도 있어요 과 말을 강과 말을 라과 말을 나고 말을 두스는 거니 쉬고 봐도 제대로 잡에 많이도 잡에 아민도 왔을라면 타 제제도 대대버데 말이스 내주에 당분 고속을 간지속도 세주 점배 동행이야 안에 탄도의 삼로지 되기도 왔어. 아니 동행을 타를 원도 점배 동행 코랑 세주 점배 공은 우주를 차려 지구를 봐. 지구라 고민사도 점배 제게요 말해. 지구디 마밍을 디기 주주고 요래. 교대 레다 녀모로 녀모 껴나 말에 직소라스. 아, 녀모다 녀모기 샤비 껴스도 점배 동행이지. 녀모 딥 동행이 매버스야 레다 녀모를 타르고도 레다 녀모를 타려야 뒤쪽에 가르치기도 세대 직덕이 치기도 없어. 아니 직덕이 아니 직덕이 유도 교회 아니 다 세야디 아니 컨데스 고규 요데메스 삼로당지 아니 딜레야 리베 네바 파브제 아니 직디 유도 교회 다도 좀 당진디기 신유디 매바 여 신유디 아니 다음에도 비셔라도 지당어서 집에 로지 임바 하고 요도 점배 아니 되게 님보 다음에도 비셔라고 공부 될라 때네 아니 등지마 고구 요리 세번나신 마란솔 이나양 름바디 지 매베 이나 다음에 가서 고미샤베 이나 따지 가르서래 심규리야 즉 다음에 이 고아직 여바 관시지라 아니 소아암 명소로 땅 하버도 다음에 공부 될라 때 좋아요 슉슉 쉬고 영양세 인지게면서 no chance 데 인도자비 냐버도 아란 줄을 다음에 또 셔럽을 때니 신이 샘 나로라야 다 레와지 두아 말 딘디지 고구도 와세디 커티 용토그레 슬랍도 점베 삼로 땅당 딘디지 쇠토이나 아니 랑싱길레 고이도 점베 아니 엔조 바이 다른 거지 예수문나신 아주 뒤시 탐지는 초도 교버디 수수 내봤다비 뒤시 다음에 또 비셔라를 맨다비 뒤시디 저와 수단도 것도 신스레
אז כאן אנחנו מדברים על תודעה מסוימת שמבינה את הריקוד. זה אומר שהיא הופכת להיות עבורנו תודעה שהיא די ספציפית. זה לא איזושהי תודעה כללית או רנדומלית כללית שמבינה את הריקוד, אלא אנחנו קודם כל שואלים את עצמנו איזה סוג תודעה היא תודעה שמתבוננת בריקוד. אנחנו גם כדי להבין את
The most important that's come so far among all of this is the words so just find should look upon this correctly, repeating, beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. So it's not just viewing the aggregates as empty of nature. It's not just that the aggregates are empty of nature. It's holding or viewing those aggregates as empty of inherent nature. So the emphasis here, what's most important, is about the awareness that is viewing emptiness. We need a special type of awareness, a special type of mind that is viewing emptiness. And so this special type of awareness is the awareness analyzing the ultimate. And yeah, His Holiness talks about this and the need for this awareness analyzing the ultimate. So we need to understand that what is needed or what is important with regard to this awareness analyzing the ultimate, that before we generate this mind, in order to become this special awareness, then I need to mention what are the preliminaries that are required before that in order to give rise to this special awareness that is analyzing the ultimate. And so what preliminaries do we need? So we might think of prostrating or offering mandalas, accumulating merit and purifying negativities. Well, actually, these are not the main preliminaries that we need. Before that, we need the special discrimination, a very particular discrimination, which is to see oneself as sick, to think I am sick, and that the Dharma is the medicine. So there's a verse, so in order to develop this awareness analyzing the ultimate, before that we need to prepare the mind through having this discrimination that I am sick and the Dharma is a medicine. So there's a verse from Chandrakirti's Entering the Middle Way in the 6th chapter. It says that all of the afflictions arise from self-grasping. So all of the afflictions arise from the view of the transitory collection. And so, and they observe, and that the view of the perishing collection observes the self. And then the yogis, through seeing that self, they refute it. And so we need to be like the yogi. So not like us going straight into this meditation thing, and I haven't got any inherently existing eyes and nose and so forth, just jumping straight into negating. What we first need to do is like the yogis. They first have this strong desire. They have this thought, I want to be free from suffering. And they see that suffering is a result. And they see that you can't stop the result once it's come. Here you go. We have the verse here, seeing with their wisdom that all afflictions and all faults stem from the identity view, grasping at the perishable collection, and knowing that the self is the focus of this identity view. The yogis engage in negation of selfhood. So the verse is on the screen now.
אז זה לא משהו שהוא כמונו באופן כללי, שלנו באופן כללי לפעמים יש לנו גישה מין כללית
So we need to be like the yogis, not to jump straight into our meditation and emptiness, but first we need to have this desire, recognize that we want to be free from suffering, seeing that suffering is a result, and once the results come about, we can't stop that. Actually, we see we need to go to the cause of that the suffering has a cause. And so when it says that all the afflictions and the faults are a result that come from the view of the transitory collection, then the yogi looks at what the object of the view of the perishing collection, the self, and seeing that reasoning harms the object clinged to or adhered to by the view of the transitory collection, the view of the perishing collection. And they see that the wisdom realizing selflessness directly harms the object grasped at by, or negates or harms the object grasped at by the view of the transitory collection or the self-grasping ignorance. So we need this. We need to have this in order to have a strong wisdom realizing selflessness. But we don't. So in order to have a strong wisdom realizing selflessness, we need to have this as a preliminary. But we don't do like this. And if we don't do like this, then however much we meditate on selflessness, we won't get a taste of it. We won't have any experience of it. So first we need to have this very strong hope or aspiration to be just like, we need to be like the yogis. So first we need to have this strong determination, there's a strong discrimination, recognizing that oneself is sick. So this is said to be the supreme discrimination.
האחיזה בעצמי, שבעצם עצמי הוא לא קיים, הוא סוג של בערות שעולה ומתפתח בהתבוננות במצרפים המתכלים. אז היוגי רואה שבעצם שהעצמיות שבה דבקה ההשקפה הזאת שהמצרפים המתכלים הוא בעצם לא קיים. היא זאת שההשקפה הזאת מתבוננת בו, אבל העצמי כזה, עצמי אוטונומי, אובייקטיבי, לא מתקיים, ולכן היוגי פה הוא עוסק בשלילה של העצמיות הזאת. אז זאת הגישה שאנחנו צריכים לנקוט לגבי האחיזה בעצמי. זה האופן שבו אנחנו צריכים לחשוב על זה. אנחנו צריכים לראות את עצמנו כמישהו שהוא חולה, כמישהו שרוצה להירפא ממחלתו, והדרך לריפוי מהמחלה היא כמו דרך היוגי, שמפתח את הרצון העצום הזה להירפא מהמחלה, בהבנה שבעצם כל הבעיות, כל הפגמים, כל הכשלים, כל התודעות האחרות, הן נובעות מתוך השקפת המצרפים המתכלים, שמתבוננת בעצמי שלא קיים, וזה העצמי שאותו אנחנו צריכים לשלול את קיומו.
다 디데 인도 담배 제장가 란주 그나 다지기 제바도지 체대니 동번일 제바 체대니 저기 남샤준도 동번이디 나 동번이 삼바다에 가고 매 그러지는 쓰나 아니 동번이 시류점에 그러지니 어 죽어서 시직도 말라도 죽어서 시대 라운드 들도 잠배 셈나 감다지도 감다지도 잠배 셈나로 롱은에 진짜 최치에 되게 셈을 끼고 쓰고 그래 대응할 도등도 제장아 동번이 가면 쓰요 디 만주마 손에 다 만주마 손에 동반이를 제바 제당 디 단당에 랍셔는 신치지 디간 따다 죽음에 딱 세고 싶으래 제장 될 떠게 요만 감라지 요래 또 동반이리야 제바 탕부 쇼디니 디기 간지지 보고 요래 세도 잠배 제장가 단다 동반이를 제바 제디 아니 안런 쪽에 다도 준비 등신디 만절라게 누구 요바 등원에 전에 콜 미 동반이를 삼로당되니디 등진디 나마기부 수비 요버데 세부 도세주고 요령이나 등진로 튼튼인데 매세 계제는 니버레 당보 등진 디기 레단 뇽모마당 대다 탐지 용세기 짜와데 신예텔라티니 용구 도세데 파도 다 세부 쓰고다 대바도 세부 쓰여도 점배 아니 신에 다도 점배 등진 텔라티니 기기 요바딩 산지 좀 된데 컨디슈고 민동이 게나 이게 제고 민도 당마 고고민도 딩에 하고도 우스 디파도 소소게 랭게레 디네 가로지네 다도 점배 등진 텔라티니 레단 용문 지야디 다 등진들로 튼튼 인데메 로 튼튼 이나 다 체약하게 요마를 간다 달로 튼튼 매운제 로 추버질 때는 노스게 용도 세도 달로 튼튼이 가르래서 로 튼튼 공기 세 상부도 보고요 세다 동반이라 로 컴지 띵기 인세 어제다가 등진 로시 임버 주비알라 딱 갈래도서 여디 잠베 신의 안 저기다 저도시 남샤도서 신의 레벨다 어디 인도 잠베 ran 주기 냐려야 던지기 상동반이다 제가 치고 응원들이야 ran 줄이야 차진 가시도 어디 일단 ran 줄 딩이 추칭도 연대면에 냠십 신이지라 냠십 제당도 만나봐 지고디 남들이 내버도 고요다
אז כשאנחנו בוחנים, מנתחים את הריקות, יש כאלה
So therefore
שמגיעים למסקנה
for example, those who wish to analyze emptiness, those who think about analyzing emptiness, some people actually don't like it. They don't like emptiness because when they look for the self and they find that there's nothing that you can point at the end of your investigation, there's nothing you can point at that is the self, and they look for the self and then they hear that there is no self, then they say that they don't like emptiness for that reason, because then if there's no self, then there's no agent of the actions and so forth, so they don't like that. So those people who approach it in this way, when they don't find anything to point at and then they don't find the self and then they don't like it, emptiness because of that, this shows clearly that they haven't followed that sequence that I've just explained. In the sequence, in order to generate the wisdom analyzing the ultimate, they've missed some steps. So when we think about emptiness, first we need to see that the grasping at the self brings our own suffering. We need to see that my own grasping at the self brings my own suffering. And we need to see that it's a mistaken mind and that it brings about the other afflictions and our karma and our suffering. So we need to see that process, that the grasping at the self, it brings my own suffering, and that it's a mistaken mind and brings about my own afflictions and so forth. So when we really can look inside and see and understand that, then we don't need to ask the Buddha, we don't need to ask our own teacher about it, that we can understand for ourselves through analyzing and investigating. We can check to see if grasping at a self is a mind that's in line with reality or not. And so when we check and investigate and come to see that grasping at a self, whether it's in a mind in line with reality or not, actually it's difficult for us to establish that grasping at a self is a wrong consciousness. So for that, that's when you arrive at the presentation of the different philosophical tenets to explain their presentation on selflessness, on what grasping at a self is, and we need the presentation of the four seals and so forth. And so what we need to do at the very start is see how our grasping at a self brings our own suffering. And then we need to go through in this process in this way of analyzing and seeing how it brings us suffering, and then coming to see how it's a mistaken mind. And then we need to find out what is the unmistaken mind that can overcome that. And so that's when we need the presentation. We need to know the path.
לימוד או ההבנה של ארבעת האסכולות, ארבעת הפילוסופיות הבודהיסטיות. אז בעצם אנחנו מדברים פה קודם כל על התשתית שאנחנו בונים כדי לעסוק בנושאים האלה, בנושא הזה. לפני שאנחנו בוחנים, לפני שאנחנו מנתחים את הריקות, אנחנו צריכים לבחון, אנחנו צריכים לבדוק, אנחנו צריכים לנתח. צריכים לחקור, לעשות איזשהו מחקר מסוים כדי לוודא שהדרך שנעבור בסילוק הסבל שלנו תהיה דרך שאין בה טעויות, דרך שאין בה פגמים.
알았어. 다, 디, 누전베, 단다 직제 다 대신에 다디 dorden데 파 조사비 슈들라 아니 다 베나 수 코랑 수고 풍부 코랑 산노 담바이나 아니 고 동니시고 산노 담다데 말라단치 수 동바오 동바니 수수 수레 동바니 셰마이 동바니 레겐 수셰마이 노 어시지 직디수 디 다 풍부 하마 숨도 파 림자 당해라 다디 손도 좀베 담나 담부 수 동바오 시도 좀베 치크도 봐서는 담바에나 수 코라 요마르다 상조로 추베기도 단에 수 코라 여딘 소리지 수 코라 요마르다 신선로지 요래 아 되네 동반이 수소 시도 좀베 파제도 동반이 인장 안수도 요르다 신선로지 요르다 다치디 슈링 다다 브레이크 차비 슈데 아주这些 연구를 봐 커도스입니다 다 소래 동반이 시험이 동반이 리수 시험이노 시디 군인 오지기 도가 타됐게 시도 아 소래 동반이 신예데 파 로스 요마레 동반이 신예데레 소코 로스 요마레 시디 아나 지게 도 오지리아 한 도가 타데 토네 시주레 마도 아니 그 소소소소네 게요 말다 드리지 시딩 소리 요래 다 대시에 원들 잡에 단용으로 가르쳤을 당보대 수고랑 동발에서 그도 시장 저베이나 아니 그도 시장이 요래 주장을 빼나 지게 남바 산제비 추주 호랑을 돌려야 수고랑 동발이 요 말이스 그런 그도 시장이 요래 요래 때 이나야 단단한조 림바데 로단데 딜라나스와 때야다가 디가데 파라가데 세제는 초람다 졸람기 아니 토네 로단지 되네 토람고 로단지 고람고 로단데 로고요 그래서 만조신 람상 코라 소동바오 스디용 란조로 란제 다직비나 수 치료고 수 빼나 수 뭔게지고 많이 봐 단다 지 듄리 양 란조 스크린 통고요 컴퓨터에 아이패드에 조상 아니 동바레 슬랍나 람상 코라 딜이야 켈렌 가고로 봐 코란 그면에 두수 여베직 세우시스 통고요 코 요마레슬람나 다 양나니 소소 다 당당히 요마레슬라고 와르마도 지게 신 가르레스 되어들 얘기를 봐 제장가 수동바고 시두전배 당기 공부시단데 인지민질레고 대나로 수동바고 시두전배 마랑 솔야 아니 단다 풍 아주 강사스니디 아니 타니디 유베 강사당 아니 랑은이 유베 강사선 가제기 가제다당 아니 타니디 유베 다 세븐나시 아니 소모라 수고 풍부세도 잠베 란졸로 코랑게 면이 유베기 나야게 수대당 아니 타니디 유베 수세데 니도스지 유데메 년데 타 추국도시 디타마잖아 네 수동바고 시도 잠베 수치니바 타니디 유베 수 파가도 인가 요도 선배 세상강 알아줘 비 디니기 남샤 예와도 체니 연구도 세게 내가 되고 딜 토로 요르와
אז קודם כל הזכרנו את התמצית של התמצית של תשובתו של אבלוקדשוורה, שהריפותא בין השושלת ובת השושלת הרוצים לעסוק במעשה המעמיק של שלמות החוכמה, התבוננו כך, התבוננו עד תום אף בחמשת המצרפים האלה כריקים מעצם טבעם. ואז
So then after the
אבלוקדשוורה
abbreviated
מתחיל לפרט, והוא מדבר
section,
על
after the abbreviated
רצף הריקות.
saying
החומר
that
ריק,
beholding those whole
חומר אין ריקות מלבד
all the
חומר,
aggregates as
אין
empty of
חומר
inherent
מלבד ריקות.
existence, we have the fourfold
כאשר אנחנו מתחילים
emptiness.
להיכנס
So yeah,
לעומקם של
after correctly
הסעיפים,
impeding,
ארבעה
behold the
סעיפי
five aggregate sources of inherent
אנחנו
nature.
מתחילים
Form is
קודם כל
empty, emptiness is form.
בחומר ריק,
Empty is not other than form. Form is
שדרך
also
אגב, שקוראים
not
אותו
other than
בשפה
emptiness.
הסנסקריטית או בשפה
So, and then in this form is explicitly indicated here, and then in sequence to go through the other aggregates, the feeling aggregate and so forth. And so the reflection to do is that form, it's not really existent, it's not inherently existent. Therefore, it is empty, and emptiness is form is form is not really emptiness, and emptiness is not really form, but the form is not really not existing as inherently, and the emptiness, and that is the emptiness of the form. And so because of emptiness, form exists. And so the first one, the form is empty, is the form is empty of inherent nature, right? The nature, and the emptiness is the nature of the form. Empty of the emptiness is the nature, is the final nature of that form. And so this form is empty, emptiness is form, and then form is not other than emptiness, is indicating that they are an emptiness is not other than form. These are indicating that form and emptiness are a single entity and different isolates. And so some scholars explain it like that, and some explain it directly, that form is emptiness and emptiness is form, like taking the words literally and describe it like that. And so it can be described like that, but there's a way to go about it with respect to the sequence of the mantra, the perfection of wisdom that we saw earlier, the Tayata Gati Gati Paragati Parasanghati Bodhisattva. So the recalling that the Gati is the path of accumulation and path of preparation, and then the path of seeing and the path of meditation. So there's a particular way of engaging in this reflection on emptiness, and how form is empty and so forth, with regard to the path of accumulation and preparation, and then on the path of seeing and the path of meditation. And so, it's difficult for us if we were to look straight at external form, like our screen, computer screen, and our laptop, etc. It would be difficult for us to accept that they are empty of inherent existence, because they totally appear as though they are inherently existent, right? And so this form is emptiness. If we think of that in line with ourselves, we as persons, as people, right, there's both a conventionally existent I, and then the I which is the object of refutation, the I that is the one that is grasped at by self-grasping ignorance. So there are two. There's the person that is the conventionally existent self, and then the one that is the object of refutation, the I that is grasped at by self-grasping ignorance. And so likewise, with regard to form, there is both a conventionally existent form and then the form that is to be refuted or rejected. And so we need to be able to distinguish between these two before refuting form. And this is where we come to the presentation of the two truths. And we will discuss this in the afternoon session.
ובאותו אופן אנחנו כאן לגבי המצרף הראשון, שהוא המצרף החומר או המצרף הפיזי, הגוף, אנחנו רוצים להבחין בין גוף שמתקיים באופן קונבנציונלי, לבין גוף שמתקיים מצידו הוא. מה שאנחנו שוללים הוא גוף שמתקיים מצידו הוא, אבל לא גוף שמתקיים באופן קונבנציונלי. ולכן כשאנחנו אומרים החומר ריק, בהבחנה בין חומר שמתקיים באופן קונבנציונלי לזה שאנחנו רוצים לסתור the object of negation, כאן אנחנו סותרים כזה גוף או מצרף החומר שמתקיים מצידו הוא.
他谈的都自己的嘛，古上做恐怖写的书，你得看那啥找到说的，不看那就是这个你，那么就去中医的吃个啥个吧，他谈的谈，都是到的去这个念了看那的啥主意，嗯，真的东，先找东北人的东北人的什么东北去的，弄上了去个。
אז
I'm
אנחנו
going to ask you all
ניקח
to
לנו
please
עכשיו
excuse me now
הפסקה, למרות
because
שזה כמה דקות לפני
I'm
השעה, למרות
hungry.
שאומר שהוא רעב.
It's
הוא רגיל לאכול
I usually have
ב-12:30,
my lunch at 12:30,
ועכשיו
and
אצלו זה
and so
1,
I'm quite hungry now. So I don't know what you're
1:30.
going to do, but I think we'll take a
אז
break
הוא
now, and I'll go and
מרגיש
have my lunch.
שהבטן ריקה,
Because if
כמו
I have
שאנחנו
on an
אומרים,
empty
החומר
stomach,
הוא
if I
ריק, אז
try and
גם
talk about
הבטן ריקה,
emptiness,
והוא
then
מאבד
I don't know how
אנרגיה,
it's going to come.
הצבא צועד על קיבתו, כמו שאנחנו אומרים, אז אנחנו ניקח לנו הפסקה, רימבוצ'ה שימלא את המצבורים, ואנחנו ניפגש לנו בעוד שעה, שזה יהיה באיזו שעה לפי שעון ישראל?
12.
12 לפי שעון ישראל. אז תודה רבה, thank you very much, Rinpoche, and bon appetit.
Thank you very much.
May you be strong and healthy.
Thank you. OK，上期必须去面对这种日类一点点吧的上节行动。这个南大新的这边show一的嘛，古鲁拉那们这那个那呀的呀呗。OK, I will see you after 1 hour. OK.
Thank you.
תודה, יקילה.
תודה,
תודה.
שיהיה לך כיף עם הקפה. תודה.
תודה.
תודה, יקי.
אוקיי, נתראה בעוד שעה.
Thanks for the English translator as well.
Yeah, thank you, Drolma.
נפלא. Thank you very much.
Thank you, powerhouse.
היי, פרד.